Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine Rose, founder and CEO of channelWise. channelWise is a technology platform that provides channel partners access to vetted, been there, done that experts for one-to-one video consultations to help them go farther faster in their business. Today, I want to have a hearty welcome for Kevin Lancaster, CEO and founder of Channel Program. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. Kevin's built a channel programs and service organizations that have generated more than $5 billion in revenue across the commercial and public sectors. He's a recognized authority on sales strategy, go to market, channel sales, technology innovation, startup acceleration, and channel program development. So, obviously, that's a very, very large resume that you have there. So, thanks so much for taking the time out to be with us. Um, I wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, all the different opportunities that you've seen through the channel. Talk a little bit about your evolution of the channel as you've seen it, to today.
Sure. No, again, and thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. You're doing some pretty darn good work out there. So my background, I guess my experience with the channel started roughly 20 years ago. I started a consulting firm in Washington, D.C., downtown D.C., and it was focused on more of the public sector, given the proximity to D.C. and government and what have you. But the mission of that company, Winville, at the time, was to help companies get into the public sector and sell more effectively. And it could be a Palantir who we picked up from the airport, brought them to these into the into the Beltway. They went on to be Palantir and did what they did. But we found this really interesting knack for finding amazing technologies early on, and so we started really kind of in the consulting space. And then we said, look, we should start taking these technologies ourselves to the public sector. And so that company evolved into a IT service provider. It had some reseller, kind of bar aspects to it as well. But this again started in 2003, and I've seen this really interesting evolution of the channel along the way.
Right.
As we were building out that company, Winvale, let's fast forward to maybe 2015, 2016. I kind of get a little tired of the hamster wheel. We'd find these great technologies, really interesting leading edge, bleeding edge security solutions. We bring them into the government. We'd win these enterprise contracts, and then the next day they'd be acquired by Symantec or Oracle or BMC. And so we were kind of left, left kind of at the altar, or having to work with these large, massive organizations that just, they were just, the wheels would just come grinding to a halt. And so in 2015 had the idea to commercialize some interesting cybersecurity solutions, and launched this platform called Dark Web ID,
Hmm.
and scaled that platform. Actually started out in selling to the federal government, the states, and I think we brought on enterprise customers like the NFL. But then we transitioned really, 100% into the channel. I think it was 2017, and from 17 to 19, we went to several thousand channel partners and ended up selling that to Kaseya. So I've had a really interesting kind of
Yeah.
background, because I've seen both sides of the market. I've been there, for the last 20 years. It's just exited out of that consulting firm, but almost 20 years of an IT service provider, from that aspect or angle of the channel. And then, built high velocity software companies and sold them and ran go to market at Kaseya. So I've seen a really interesting, both sides of the channel, if you will.
Yeah, I was going to say it looks like you've been all over, right? You've been on that almost a 360 view because you know the I think the only thing you haven't been is a vendor, right? You haven't been a supplier.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, but if you consider IdeaGen a
I guess they
vendor,
would,
then
yeah, they'd be a
yeah,
vendor. They'd
yeah,
be a vendor. So you have
yeah,
really that 360-degree, view of the channel, which is very interesting and unusual, right?
yeah.
And now you're a supplier, right? Like in a way that you provided another software solution, but you're selling into vendors and you provide it for MSPs. So, and I know a lot of your focus is about kind of helping the newer folks, really get exposure, and that's how we met because I saw all these incredible companies that you were showcasing and the pitching competitions and all that stuff, which was so incredible because it is challenging to break in, right? But talk about some of those challenges that you see the newer vendors, particularly experiencing and getting traction inside the tech channel.
Yeah, look, it's something really interesting happens in this marketplace. The technicians and the business owners, but the technicians, they're hardwired to want to see the latest and greatest. They want to see the technologies that are coming down the pike. They love their large vendors that support them and the vendors that they use, but there's an inherent curiosity in the channel about what's next and what should I be building toward. And the challenge that we surfaced is that there are very few. So we were fortunate, right? ID Agent, arguably kind of the fastest growing cybersecurity company in the channel over the last decade. We were fortunate we had the right product, the right time, the right market conditions, the right marketing messaging. Dark web. It was mysterious, it was sexy, and all that stuff. But the emerging vendor today, it's so fragmented. There's so many competitors. It's hard to differentiate yourself when it comes to cybersecurity specifically. And we've built this kind of amazing ecosystem, but it's hard for these emerging vendors to cost effectively enter the market and scale, because it's fragmented. There's 1,001 events that you have to attend, and then the big vendors are obviously incentivized to keep these emerging vendors out because they don't want to take market share. So we figured, can we build a platform that allows the emerging vendor, gives the emerging vendor the same kind of leg up that the enterprise or the legacy vendors have in the marketplace? Can we essentially level the playing field and give the technicians and give the business owners and the marketing people access to the new solutions that are coming out, that will help them further their business, grow their revenue, increase their margins, and better secure their customers?
Yeah, and I think that is, I love that mission, and talk a little bit about how it's evolved, because I know it started there, right? Where you were like, let me see if I can help these other startups, like you are a startup, get the
Yeah.
traction and get the visibility, because it can be very, very expensive to get any visibility. As you mentioned, 1,001 events. I mean, I think our friend Jay McBain wrote that article about I think it was like the top 231 events or something in the channel. And I was saying that to a friend of mine, and she said there's 200 plus events. I'm like, oh no, those are the only the top ones.
Yeah.
There's a lot more, right? So it can be very expensive and very daunting. But that's where you started. But how has it evolved? How has channel program itself evolved from there?
Yeah, great question. So, we started out this mission of bringing these technologies in a way that the vendor would get exposure, but at the same time, the MSP could log into our platform anonymously and not feel like they're going to a trade show. And right after the trade show, every vendor gets their email address and their phone number is blowing them up. So, started out with that concept of pitch. Now we've evolved it into a program we call Engage, where it allows the MSP to log in anonymously and decide if they want to engage with the vendor. And what that does for the vendor is that they got to bring their A game, right? They got to really, in 7 minutes, talk about the value proposition, talk about their technology and how it's beneficial, how it's different. And a lot of vendors have a hard time doing that, especially the CEOs of the vendors, because the CEOs are often the ones that, have a lot to say. I guess guilty as charged, but so we started out with that kind of model in mind, but we started to see that we're collecting a lot of data on what the industry is looking for, right? And this is all anonymized data, but getting some really good feedback about what is important to an MSP in a technology vendor. Sure, the product has to work, but do they support the MSP? Do they provide training? Do they have MDF? Do they, what are these attributes that the channel is looking for in these vendors? And so we started to see these patterns. We said, next step is, why don't we start, going out and do product reviews? Let's get really some raw feedback from the channel on their experience with some of these technologies. And so I think we launched that about 12 months ago. We're just over 3,000 product reviews on the
Wow.
platform today. And next step of our evolution was launching a unified PRM. And the benefit, for those that don't know what a PRM is, a partner relationship management platform or portal. The benefit to the vendor is now within our platform, they can promote, they can do thought leadership, they can do lead generation, and they can manage your channel all in one platform without having to go out and buy these disparate PRMs or what have you. And The benefit again on the other side of the table for the MSP is that now they have one place to log into instead of logging into 30 or 40 different partner portals. They log into one, they access all of their vendors in one stack, and that's led to our latest evolution. Our product announcement that we're coming to market with here is called Navistack, and that essentially allows the MSP to log in. They can put their vendor products in different sections within their technology stack. They can see the gaps in their stack. They can see how their peers have reviewed those products within their stack, and they can engage with their vendors. And so they can chat within the platform. And so the whole idea is that you start with what big problems are out there.
Right.
On the MSP side, it's fragmented. It's hard to interact with your vendors, particularly as they scale. Obviously, support quality tends to go down at scale. So could we help solve that with building a platform or an ecosystem that the MSPs would use, and we protect their privacy through and through, and then at the same time could we provide that same value to the vendors? And that's where we are today. And it's been a crazy 18, 19 months of our evolution here.
Well, I mean, and you have this knack of seeing the gaps and filling them. I mean, for many years, I think there are other folks out there who've been wanting to do this sort of single pane of glass, kind of idea, but it's hard. It's harder to get traction, and you've sort of bubbled it up from the bottom, which is really, which is a really great way to do it. Is you've taken all this data, you've used that, and then you've said to these emerging vendors, hey, now you can access all of this other, this other information, and oh, by the way, MSPs, now you can see it as well and really utilize the platform as, like you said, this, like, they could build their stack in there, see their gaps, and then also see how other people can really access and the reviews of their peers, which is really, really important. And I know that you've said to me before that you wanted to be the homepage destination for MSPs. And why is that so important to you? Why is that such a like a passion of yours?
Well, you think about it, going back to, with Winvale, I think we were working with at one point on our GSA schedule. I think we had 75 or 80 different vendors that we were working with. And some we were a little bit more passive, but some we were all in, and we had hundreds of customers with, there was a company called Numara. I think they were bought by BMC. Some others that, we had just a ton of activity. We had, certifications and all that stuff. But looking back, the challenge was, again, the communication with the vendor, and the fact that, and this is going back to, this is 2015, and there were portals and Salesforce and all that stuff. But, it was like herding cats trying to reach out to our vendors, and interact with them, understanding what are the latest, product updates, what's on the product roadmap. What's, as pricing change, what's the most current marketing material out there that we can use and put our logo on and bring it into a customer. And so I mean, it kind of, looking back, like, these were a lot of the frustrations that we had on in running our IT service provider business. And so we said, let's build out this platform and then kind of circle back on some of these key pain points. And that's why we see this being the homepage, because if you're at an MSP, you've got obviously several personas at MSP. You've got the technician, you've got folks in marketing, you've got
And
business
sales,
owners,
yeah.
but there's something in there for everybody. The business owner can find new solutions. They can look at the pricing models of the vendors. For the technician, they can get down and understand the product. If it's a current partner and they update their product roadmap, or they update their documentation, they'll get alerts. The technician can log in and see the latest. And when individually, if that's done individually, and you're only working with a handful of vendors, that's manageable. But average MSP is working with 32 different
I was gonna
solutions.
say, yeah, yeah.
And if they're having to log into 32 different portals, that's just the definition of insanity. So we see this being the homepage, because you can log in, you can access all of your enablement materials from your vendors, you can chat with your vendors, you can drop your logos on, you can save all of your sales and marketing materials in one centralized place. You can find solutions that might be missing in your gap, or missing in your stack. So we think that we'll have several personas using the platform from an MSP on a weekly basis to access all their documentation centralized, and and not have to log into 30 different platforms. And so we're pretty bullish on it, and the feedback
Yeah.
we've gotten is pretty well. But we'll see how the market reacts to
Well,
it
I
on
think,
this.
any kind of a product is always best when you see that pain point. And like, I know you're an expert on channelWise. Thank you for joining us. And I mean, I'm just curious from your perspective, like, why was it important for you to be an expert on channelWise? What do you see about us that attracted you to be part of our ecosystem?
Well, look, I think our conversations go back to almost a year ago now, right? And
Yeah.
as you were starting to build out this platform, I was like, that's absolutely it. I mean, this marketplace is full of pretty significant gaps, right? And one of the big challenges, especially as MSPs start to scale, is access to people that have been there and done that, right? That's why I was actually right. I love that. I love that tagline, in your opening. I mean, but seriously, it's the only way, the only reason I'm able to do what I do, and build and scale companies, invest in companies. I've been there and done that, but I still have to, go out and find advisors and experts that I can interact with. And that's a massive gap in this industry, right? And MSPs, and there are some, sales gurus here and there, but again, it's all fragmented. And what you've done is you've pulled things together in a very organized, concise way. You can find, you make it easy to find the expert, type of, problem that you have, and get connected to the expert that can help you solve that problem a lot faster. And that's, I think, I talked about the definition of insanity, earlier, but this is the definition of, I don't know, awesomeness. I don't know,
Oh,
because
thanks.
yeah,
That means a lot
seriously, I
to me,
mean,
very honestly. It's just, for us too, was like that pain point of, being in the channel for a long time. And then as you saw, like the MDF budgets shrinking and, the education stuff was really more toward the technical. Like from my side, I was like, well, sometimes it's just that, I mean, I pick your brain all the time. Like, what do you think about this evolution or, with my platform too? And others, call me about things. And I think it's sometimes it's that, it's obviously that quick, practical, tactical, advice. And so I think similarly we saw, these gaps, but I really appreciate you, being on with us. And just to circle it back to like your journey in the channel. And obviously you're really, really good at seeing that future and the gaps and how to fill them. But overall, there's a lot of people who write about trends and different things, but you actually get that real time data. So tell us from your perspective, what are some of the trends that MSPs, we'll start with MSPs, but MSPs and vendors need to be on the lookout, and people would say, oh, what is the channel going to look like in 3 years? It's like, what is the channel going to look like tomorrow? But like, let's at least look like toward the end of the year, like the closing quarters of the year, maybe into next year. What are some of your the trends that you see?
yeah, I think if you're just looking at some of this data the other day with Jacques, who just joined us, I think some of the trends are what you're going to see. I think become even more polarized. Second half of this year is you're going to see MSPs leaning more heavily on their vendors for support, for enablement. It's whether we're in a recession or not, if there's a contraction, slowdown, if we're picking up steam, who knows? But the underlying or what surfaced is really the fact that there's a lot of uncertainty, and because there's so much uncertainty, the MSPs are going to be one tightening their belt, and so it's going to be about margin, but it's going to be about how do you differentiate? How do you support me as an MSP? How do you support my business?
Mm,
If I'm going to saddle up with you and your solution, you have to do the same thing. And in the past, it's been, we talked about where a lot of the vendors fail is when they start to scale and they stop really investing in supporting their partners. And so I think you're going to see that squeeze. You're starting to see it now, but I think you're going to see it even more so in the second half of this year. And so the vendors that aren't leaning into enablement, the ones that aren't looking for creative ways, maybe not through MDF, but maybe there's through gamification or incentivization, ways to really further engage your channel. If you're not doing that, then I think it's going to be a rough second half of the year. I mean,
yeah.
we've seen kind of if you look at MSP's business two different ways. You look at it, new customer acquisition, and then account management or growth within the accounts. I think the new customer acquisition slowed a little bit, and I think it's going to be really about what you can do to support your MSPs to help them grow effectively within their existing install base or existing customer base, until, this market, sends enough signals that we're moving in the right direction. And then the NCA side of it floods up or starts to scale back up. And you're seeing it across the board. You're seeing every vendor, tightening their belt. They're thinking about, which events, they're thinking twice about which events, they're thinking about, how they go to market. So that's some of the data that we've seen specifically over the last month with some of the product reviews is, how are you supporting me? And I think the last thing, and this is a hard thing for any vendor to do. Every vendor, doesn't matter what product category, might be more so because, cybersecurity is more polarized, but you have to be able to take complex, challenges, and you have to, break them down into simple terms. They have to be articulated the way that not only the MSP can understand, but the MSP's customer can understand. And so that's, you got the maturity curve going on in this space where MSPs are maturing, they're starting to understand cybersecurity, but their customers are way, way back here.
Way
And
back.
so I think
Yeah.
another thing we've seen is the vendors that are accelerating, their product could be at parity, could be lagging, could be a little bit out front, but the ones that have made it easily digestible, simplified messaging, and leaned into enablement, those are the ones that are going to, I think, survive moving forward, especially as there's just so many. Every day, I think we're talking, 15, 20 different vendors is incredible. But
It is, yeah. I mean, it's this acceleration of new people coming in, and and I think that you made a very good point that the enablement piece is so important, but yet, so many of the vendors, you saw them, they did a lot of layoffs, and a lot of those layoffs were in their support organization, right? Because they felt like they had to lean more into sales, and so they're going to have to kind of right that ship. And I always say, if you want more engagement, you have to change the engagement model. So you can't keep going to doing the same things, and then complaining that you don't get engagement. So let's, we'll
yeah,
work on, changing that engagement model. But I mean, I couldn't agree more. Obviously, with channelWise, the enablement and programs is near and dear to our hearts, and that's what we stand to. But well, thank you for your expertise. Thank you for joining us today. And so you've been on this meteoric rise and really getting all these incredible programs together. And so it's been a pleasure for me to be working with you guys, and a pleasure to have you on today. So thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it.
oh, look, pleasure's all mine. And like I said, I'm a major fan of what you're doing. And yeah, this industry absolutely needs this level of connection and access to resources. So good on you for that, for sure.
Thanks, thanks. So, folks out there, if you'd like to get deeper advice about this topic, head over to Kevin's expert profile on channelwise.com, and we will put that link into the post. Or if you have any other critical business questions, we have a lot of experts on the ChannelWise platform all ready to help you or your partners go farther faster in your business. Thanks again, Kevin, and until next time, everyone.